Hello everyone, how are you doing? Thank you for the really lovely response for my cover of Memory. My ukulele was definitely very much out of tune and I need to work on that. But thank you for the lovely comments and the likes and the views. It was very nice. Frizz up the hair because I like a big mane, even though I don't have long hair anymore. So yesterday I watched a round table with the Hollywood Report with Steven something or other. Didn't like him because he kept on cutting people off. Anyway, it was a group of a lot of actresses who've won Oscars and stuff. All of them were sitting on a table and they were talking about representation of women in the media. And Helen Mirren said something quite interesting. She was saying when she watches films, she always goes, that could have been played by a woman. That could have been played by a woman. Why can't they just change the names and just make them women? Like, why do they have to be men? Fair point, not gonna lie. Feminist myself, so obviously I'm gonna agree. But I also think that quote applies to disabled people. 15% of the world's population in some shape or form is disabled. Me being one of them. I was diagnosed with autistic spectrum disorder when I was 2 years old, which is, I've mentioned it in a review previously, but if you're new here, basically I have 3 elder siblings and when I was developing I wasn't progressing in the same rate as my older siblings, so my parents noticed that and so that's why I was diagnosed so early. Normally they're diagnosed when they're about 6.5. And when I was younger, it was very much drilled into me, not because of my parents, my parents were so lovely and understanding and all the teachers were really lovely as well. It was the students. The students very much drilled into me that people who were disabled were retarded. When I was younger I used to get a bus. It was like a council, I don't actually know who provided for it, probably the government. But they take disabled students from their houses to schools and then vice versa after school. And at my old school they used to call it the Downy bus. And obviously that had a very big impact on me. So I never asked for help. I never went to the special educational needs department to say, I'm struggling with this piece of homework, can you please help me? Because retarded people are stupid and I didn't want to seem that I was weak at that, I was stupid, so I never got the help that I really needed and so that's really harmed my development, which sucks. And I was noticing recently that a lot of documentaries at the moment are about autistic people, like The A Word with Christopher Eccleston. I'm meaning to watch that. And then there's also on Gogglebox they watched a thing called Employable Me, and they featured a segment about a really heavily autistic man and they all reacted like, oh bless him, and I was sort of like, this is making me a bit uncomfortable because it was so drilled into me that disabled people were weak and they were vulnerable. I stayed away from disabled people. I stayed away from them as much as possible because I hated reflecting on the fact that the stereotype around what I have is cruel. I wish I had this when I was younger because I feel like if I had this representation when I was a young person, that really would have helped me develop and it really would have made me accept what I had a lot earlier. It was only like 1 or 2 years ago where I accepted I'm autistic and I need help. But I feel like at the moment it's covering quite heavily disabled people. And that is not a bad thing. I'm not saying in the slightest that it is a bad thing. It is amazing and thank you world for giving the representation that I'd so like in the world. I'm very fortunate to not be very autistic. I'm quite low on the spectrum, but it's enough to be diagnosed with autism. What my issue is that people think I'm a regular person even though I hint to them that I am autistic. When I mess up, if I don't understand a social norm or if I get confused over a certain instruction. I have to ask them to repeat it to me a few times. I get super embarrassed, and I feel like I know this is my autism playing, but at the same time I feel like I've fucked up and I should go hide in a corner from the rest of the world. I wish there was representation of disabled people in the media that covered all spectrums, whether it was me on this end who has difficulties even though I'm quite low on the spectrum, and obviously to people who are way up there, and obviously people in between. And also there needs, you know, that there's whitewashing, there needs to be able-bodied washing, because they omitted the fact that there were deaf people in the Hunger Games, there were mute people in the Hunger Games in the book, and it made me incredibly angry when watching the Hunger Games and they completely cut out that whole thing where Katniss was half deaf. There were the Noxes, and I was like, how are people going to learn about all these disabilities and the way they cope with life if they keep on cutting it out of various, even if it's just a subplot, in a 2-3 hour film, it means something. It could change the person who called that bus the Downy bus to actually think for a second that these people inside this bus are just as human as they are. Back to Helen Mirren's quote when she was saying that could be played by a woman, that could be played by a woman. Some parts in film and television could easily be played by disabled people. And I don't mean in wheelchairs and crutches. I mean they could have autism, they could have Down syndrome. I'm very appreciative now of the representation disabled people are getting in the mainstream media. But I feel like we have a very long way to go. 15% of the world is disabled, so surely they should come up more often. Thank you for watching this video. Please leave comments about how you feel. Have you ever thought about representation of disabled people before? How I made you? Or has it been on your mind a lot? Let's just have a debate in the comments section, shall we? Like if you want, subscribe if you want. Yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Bye!